Today, we are going to discuss about the JWT tokens or JSON Web Tokens. It's a small topic, but it's a very useful thing. Earlier, we used to use session storage, cookie based storage for authentication and authorization, and recently, this thing came in around 2012 or something. So it's quite a useful thing. So let's get started with this first. So first, why do we choose JWT over session based storage? First of all, it is stateless. You don't have to store it in the server side. Like in session based authorization or authentication, you have to, if if a user is entering its credentials, and so you are creating one session ID respective of that particular user, and you're storing it in a database or your file system or in your Redis cache or something. But if you're using a JWT token based authorization, then you don't have to store it somewhere. It is stored basically in the client side in the local storage or the session storage over there. And it is also available in it is available in multiple programming languages, so that is not an issue. And yeah, so traditional versus token based authentication systems. So what, as I said, what used to happen in the traditional authentication system? So as you can see, a user used to log in, the server checks for the credentials, whether, so I'll just brief you how I'm going to go out in this session. So first I'll walk you through the JWT thing, like how, what it is, how, why is it useful and all, and then I'll just try to give you a small demo which I made in the hackathon, which had that JWT token thing. So in traditional authentication system, first a user logs in, the server obviously checks the credential, then what the server does, a server a server, it creates a session ID basically, and stores it in the file system or the database, as I said earlier. Mainly, generally it stores it in the cache, just with so every user will have a respective user ID. So and the server will be sending it back to the client, the respective user ID. So whenever the client is making another request with more endpoints and APIs, so the client will be sending the session data or the session ID. So the next time, the server will be checking the session ID in the database and can validate whether the user is correct or not, is authorized or not. So the main problem is that you have to store the session ID in the database. So if, let's say, there are millions of users in for a big company, so the data, so the data storage part will be, the memory loss will be quite a lot if you're using traditional authentication system. So here are the issues, some of the issues with the traditional authentication system. So the session you have to record, it needs to be stored in the server. So that is a major issue which was there in the traditional, which is not there currently in the JWT token based authentication system. So that's why people are moving to token based authorization. Scalability, again, it's the same thing related to it. With sessions and memory load increases drastically, and even there are some causes. So when you use multiple devices, using the data grabbing AJAX request, we may run into forbidden request, and there are many CSRF attacks. So, and also there might replay attacks will be there. So even third party indulgence will be there in session data, which might be, due to which we are moving to token based authentication right now. So how the token based authentication works? So before going into this, I would like to explain the two terms, authentication and authorization. So what exactly is the difference between authentication and authorization? So I'll just give you an example of a school. In school, what a teacher is, when a teacher, be it a teacher, principal, there are various roles over there. Let's say there are three roles over there: a student, a teacher, and principal basically. So everyone has to, while entering their school, they have to, like uh, they must make sure that they belong to the particular school. So that part is the authentication, where you get to know that this particular person belongs to the school. So that is authentication. And authorization is what are the roles of that particular person. Like a teacher can max punish the students, student don't have any other don't have any other authorities, and the principal can rusticate the student. So like that, so authorization is nothing but what are like in what all things you are authorized with. So like if you're using any APIs endpoints, you can make it secure with JWT tokens or even session based authentication. So in that way, if you put some token based authorization, then only, let's say, that particular user can only use that particular API. So how this JSON Web Token works? So the JWT token, it's nothing but it consists of three parts. It has a header, it has a payload, it has a signature, all separated by three dots. It's a string in the and so the header is nothing but it will contain some metadata, like what is the token type and what is the algorithm which we will be using, and the header and the payload. So header is basically encoded in base 64, which means anyone can decode it, and even the payload is where you are like putting in some data. So it's generally recommended that in JW in your token you should not put some sensitive data like passwords or credit card details or something like that. So header and payload, these two are encoded in base 64. So anyone can easily decode it by any, there are like online sites. And a signature, so signature is not encoded in base 64. So signature you can I'll explain you it is a function of header, payload, and there's a secret key, header, payload, secret key, and the algorithm. So signature is nothing but a function of all the four things. It creates a unique string. It has some hashing mechanism. It goes through a hash functions, and it creates a unique random string. And combining these three, header, payload, signature, creates your JWT token. So what is a secret key then? So a secret key is something which you can which is generally residing in the server side. It is not to be kept in the client side, because that's where you are going to create the JWT token. So a JWT token is generally created in the server side, and it is sent to the client side, and the client stores it in the local storage or the session storage. And with every after that every with every request, the client sends the JWT token as a header authorization, and then the server can validate whether the JWT token is valid or not. So one more like advantage of using token based authorization is you don't have to go through that steps where you have to check in the database whether the session ID is valid or not. So that database query time is like reduced. But there's one cons also, that you have to generate a JWT token, but the time in creating the JWT token is not much. So generally, a secret is generally saved in an environment variable if you're storing it in a server, and then using that secret key, your server generates a JWT token, and hence it creates a unique signature. So if anyone wants to tamper with this token, yeah, this is how JWT will look like. The first one will be the header, then it will be a signature, and then it will be a header, payload, and signature. So these two anyone can decode it, but no one will be able to decode because it is encrypted. So this so even if anyone wants to tamper with the data, let's say if Ram as a user has a token generated against his name. So so if someone wants to if someone has the token of Ram, and if someone wants to log in as a different user, if he wants to access some data, so if he changes the header, then the token generated will be different. So anyway, this will be invalid, this won't be valid. So the server will check it whether it is valid or not, because server will only be having the secret key. So anyway, you can't unvalidate, so it will be invalidated. So this is how it is passed generally. It is passed as the authorization header in all the requests. Yeah, so the JWT header, as I told you, that it has generally two types: the algorithm, the hashing algorithm, which with the signature will be using, how the signature will be generating its body, and the type of the JWT header, whether it should be JWT generally. Yeah, so this is how you are like defining in JavaScript the algorithm type. So here's the difference between SHA-20 HMAC SHA-256 and RSA SHA-256. So generally in HMAC you don't use the public key, you just have a secret key, and you have like trusted parties between two, client and server, and there is one secret key which is used for the encryption of the signature. And in RSA SHA-256 algorithm, you have a public key, public and private key. So in that way, it can be more secure. Yeah. So JWT payload. So the second part, which was there, like the middle part, which was there, this one. This is the payload where you put send data, which is recommended. You should not put sensitive ones. So here there are some already inbuilt claims. So JWT claims are nothing but entities of JWT. Like some are reserved, and there are some public claims. There are some private claims. Let us go through the reserved claims. So one of the common claims which is there is the expiration time, the EXP claim. So if the server is generating a JWT token, so the server can set a particular expiration time, and generally it is like suggested to keep the expiration time very less, like 15 minutes or 10 minutes, so that it is more secure in that case. And these all are like some of the other claims, like issuer, the person who has issued the token, like if Coffee Beans is generating a token, like some product related to that, so the issuer will be Coffee Beans or something like that. The audience who will be like exposed to that token, NBF is not before, and like, and yeah, JTI is the JWT ID. It is also used for like securing your JWT token. It is nothing but unique identifier, so it will be generating a unique ID for your JWT. So this is a payload which we send in the JWT token. And now comes the signature part, the last part, where you have the encoded data base 64 header plus payload, and there's a secret key. So you have, basically you can call it a function of your header, your payload, and a secret key and your algorithm. So even if you change the header or payload, the generated token will be different. So it will be secure in the sense. So till now, is anyone having any doubt, or am I going too fast or slow? Like something like that.
I'm good, all good.
So this is just anyway I'm going to. So this is how you'll generate a public and private key if you're using HMAC SHA256 algorithm for generating a token. So this anyway I'm going to demonstrate how it is going. So this is a sample JWT token. So there's one site I can like show you how you can decode it. So if someone is, so this is the official JWT site where you can just put your, yeah, already there is some token over there. Yeah, so what I was telling, this one, the one in the red is the header, the one in your purple or pink, whatever it is your payload, and this one is a signature. So signature, as you can see, you can't see the secret key over here. These two things are like decoded. So the first thing is like you're using HS256 algorithm, the one without the public and private key. The second one is the payload where you have the like some data which you can put, like anything which you can put, like, so there's like John Doe or something. So let's say if you have this token and if you change this particular token name, so let's say I make it Ayush. Since the signature will have a hash of all the both the header payload and the secret key, so this token will anyway not be valid for a token. Let's say there is one token for Ayush, and if someone is trying to access the data by the token of John Doe, so this token will not be similar to the original token which was there for Ayush. It might be a little confusing, but it is just because the header payload are also a part of the parameter in the signature function. So it won't be similar because anyway you don't know the secret key. So this way you can't tamper or you can't access their data. So if you try to see what this data is, you can just put it over here. Yeah, so you can see Tom Abbott, RSA and JWT. Oh, is it saying invalid? Anyway, I'm going to demo, so I'll just skip this part. So securing the JWT tokens, you should verify the signature before trusting the data in the JWT. Secure the secret key used for signing. Key should be only accessible by the issuer and the consumer. So anyway, your secret key should be, and also there's one more thing, like the secret key should be of same number of bits as your algorithm is. It is generally suggested like that. Like if you're using HMAC SHA-256, so your secret key should be in 256 bits. It should not be some like string of like hello world or something like that. It is generally recommended that, and do not add sensitive data to the JWT because that can be decoded. So the payload can be decoded as I showed you already. So it's generally recommended you should not put some password or credit card details or anything like that. So preventing replay attacks. So replay attacks are generally nothing but like when a middleman gets into the client server relationship. Like when, let's say, a server generates a token and a server is sending I'll just brief you about the process of JWT, like how it happens. So let's say just assume that a simple login logout thing is there, and let's say a user registers or a user logs in. So it will hit the login API of the server. The server will generate a unique JWT token for the particular user and send it to the client. So the client will receive the JWT token of the particular user and it will generally store it in the local storage. So it will have an expiration time of, let's say, 15 minutes. So till 15 minutes the user will be logged in even if he closes the tab and he comes. So it's based upon the session storage or the local storage. So the client will be storing it in the local storage or the session storage, and whenever any other API the client is going to hit, let's say viewing the number of employees or viewing anything, the product details or something like that, so it will send the token, and all the APIs in the backend and server side will be secured with the token. Will have a middleware where it will be validating the token. So you don't have to query, you just have to validate whether the token it just validates the secret key, because the token is being sent by the server to the client will be sending it back. So if there is a middleman in between, so we are talking about that scenario right now. So if we use GTI or something like that, GTI, as I told you already, is nothing but a unique identifier. So the probability is very less for anyone to generate that kind of ID which will be similar to the ID which is generated by the token. So this thing we can do. Expiration thing is there, as I told you, that it will have an expiration time. Even if someone gets the token, if someone has the access to access the data, so it will be expired in 15 minutes, let's say. So it will be safer and issued at the time the token was issued. I don't know what this does actually. Okay. So JSON Web encryption. This is the specification. So this is mixing with the auth. So as I told you, JWT is nothing but it is used to interchange data and used for authorization. So as I told you, the difference between about the authorization and authentication. So for authentication, we have to use some other framework. So OAuth is something like that, where you like, yes, you must have seen the Google signups and all. Auth is pretty similar to that. Like it's just a framework for that. So how you are like, so now we like just go through how we are like using and OAuth and token based authorization. OAuth will be generally used for the authentication. And the first time a user logs in, how it signs up or signs in to other thing. So these are the benefits of the above specification. Like we are using OAuth and JWT token based authorization. Like if a site has an existing user relationship, you can use it. So basically, you might have seen sites where they ask you to do a Google sign up. You don't have to do the tedious process of entering your name, email ID, and all the details. You already have it in your Google account. So just do a Google sign up. So how will be linking it with the token based authentication? So how is it happening? Bit of history. So these are the just the yeah. So how it works actually, the OAuth. I'm not talking about the token based right now. I'm talking about the OAuth. OAuth 2 is the latest version of OAuth right now. So a user is forwarded to sign in, grant permissions. So as a user comes to the, let's say there are two sites. Let's say there is one Google sign up and there's one site who helps you create an account with the help of Google sign up or something like that. So let's say a user comes to site A and site B is a Google. So user is forwarded to sign in and grant permission. So you'll see the grant permission thing which a user sees. So user is user will see the pop-up of grant permission. The code is provided back in the URI. Actually, I will tell you in a simple word that so when a user comes to site A, so site A will request Google. Site A will then ask the user to give the access, whether he can access the permission or not, to request access or something like that. So site A will ask Facebook. So Facebook will send a token to site A, and that token site A will be sending it to the client, and now the user will be using that particular token. So the main issue comes that the token which you are using, it is generally called the access token. So the access token which you are using is of the OAuth framework, right? But how will you use your own token for authorization and securing your own APIs? Because that token won't be in your hand, right? If you are making your own server, you don't have the access for the expiration time they are having, so you don't have a control over there. So so what you can do, so I'll show you. So uh, so generally, if let's say a access token is given by Facebook or something, so you'll send it, let's say you are signing up, so you signed up and Facebook sends you an access token, and then that access token you're giving it to the client, and the next time if so this person and the server should the client should be hitting the server with one API, where the client should be generating the server should be generating a JWT token of the particular user, and rather than using their access token, you should then after that you can use your own access token. I think that is pretty much it from the description part of the JWT. Is anyone having any doubt, or can we move to the demo part?
Hi, Ayush.
Yeah.
So suppose we have generated the token and we have a login as an admin, right?
Hmm.
So suppose someone stole my admin token,
Hmm.
JWT token, and try to something delete or something like within 15 minutes. So how we can prevent like this? What do you think?
First of all, how is he getting the JWT token?
Anyhow, like if they will get like if someone like stole that JWT token, suppose we are using a postman and I'm using the JWT token. Suppose anyhow they like got the JWT token.
So if
So
they are in
how
that 15-minute duration, then they can access your data at the moment.
is there any possibility like we can identify the token from like it's coming from any other sources or something like?
The one thing which we can implement, rather than storing it in the client side, we can store it in our own server side, like we used to do in the session storage. So that way, there won't you can't no one will be able to see the token in the local storage or the session storage. So that will be one process, and I
Okay.
think you can reduce expiration time. That is what something into. Otherwise, it is very similar to the session ID. So if someone has the session ID,
Hmm.
he or she can do the very same with the traditional authentication approach which we had. It is just JWT is just simpler to implement.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, one thing I want to add.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Gaurav, probably we can use the concept called refresh tokens.
Okay.
Okay, so what refresh tokens basically does is, so we deploy it in a very different server. So whenever you, I mean, authenticate yourself, right, you get a refresh token. Okay, now for using the services, you use a very different token whose lifetime is less.
Okay.
Suppose you want to say get the data of, I mean, get the list of data. So, or you want to consume some other services. For consuming the services, the token's lifetime is less, whereas the lifetime of the refresh token is more. So, whenever the, I mean, whenever you are accessing these services, once the token's expiry is done, then you take the refresh token and again get a new token for accessing the services. So here they play with two tokens. One is refresh token and one is, we can call it as a service token. So that
Okay.
way, yeah.
Karan, what if the person is having both the tokens? So
So one more thing which we can add is there's something called as HTTP only. Whenever you are setting we can set the cookies in the browser itself, which are not accessed by the say client side script.
if it is HTTP only, then I think the encrypted thing can be hacked pretty easily. I think. I don't know.
So again, the concept. I think so. So Sudeep, you want to add something?
And refresh token, I think Akram, we use it when we keep the JWT token time very less, like 5 minutes or something, and then if user refreshes it, like they'll be using the refresh token for generating the new token, right?
Okay, so there are multiple ways to implement this, Ayush. So right now, one of the services which we are using is what we are trying to do is we get a refresh token as well as one of the service tokens that is generated to access the services, and the services tokens lifetime is very less, whereas the refresh tokens lifetime is more. And whenever we log out, we make sure these tokens are like either blacklisted or whitelisted based on the approach of the system. So as you said, right, saving the token in the backend. So these services are either whitelisted. So say we can keep this tokens in the, say, suppose whenever we log out, right, still there is the lifetime. So lifetime of the
Yeah,
token is still available, right?
that is one
So
disadvantage of the JWT token. We can't like expire it like explicitly.
yeah, so what we basically do is we can keep the GITs of the tokens in the whitelist. Say, suppose a user logs out, so we can keep the, I mean, these token IDs in the cache, whether they
Yeah,
are.
like yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was also.
Yeah.
In the Redis also cache. That way we can clear it.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be facing the same situation if it is a session-based storage also, because we'll be sending the session IDs in the cookies. So if someone is having that particular information,
So normally from the front end perspective, the easiest thing that we do is just clear it off from the local storage or session storage. But ideally, we're supposed to actually call the API and blacklist it from the backend. But we don't really do that.
but in the backend we don't have any, like we are not storing anywhere the token. So unless you don't store it, unless you store it in the backend, you don't have. You should clear it when you're storing it in the backend, I think.
Yeah, correct.
I'll just give you a quick demo, like which is in Golang. So so we created a small app like Coffee Beans People. So I'll just give you a brief intro. Like it was just like uh, like there's a company, they'll have some employees. So it's like that. So an employee will register and then he'll log in, and then it will be, there are many features in that. So I'll just walk you through the uh, law registration part and the login part. So what actually is happening? So I have a auth package over here. So don't go by the syntax. I will just try to grasp what how is it working actually, how we are generating the token, and how are we validating in the backend side, and how the whole flow is working. So we have a function called generate token. So where there's we have a library called JWT Go of Regelvas. So you can create your own JWT token. So the first thing is you have to set your claims. So claims are nothing but the payload which I said. It's the attributes. So other than the private claims which are there, the reserved claims, you can add your own claims. You can add some public claims which will be visible. So here I had just created a struct to make it more readable. So my claims will be having a user data and the standard claims, whatever which is available. So among this, as you can see, we have the audience, we can have the expiration, we have the JTI, the ID issued at, when all the other claims are there. So whatever you want to set, you can set it there while creating the token. So you can also do it like hardcode way, but it's not recommended generally. Like you can use a JWT packet and map claims, and then you can set like user. You can set your user data over here. User. So I'll show you the user model first. What is there in the. So my user model is having all the things like name and ID, but I won't be setting everything in the token. It might be there. The fields are there, but I won't be setting all the things over in my JWT token because. So once you set your user data, your claims, and I have set the, as you can see, I have set the time to 1 day, actually 24 hours. Like that was just a test demo project. So generally it is set to 15 minutes or 10 minutes. And then after you set the claims, you generate the token, you set it with a signing key. Sorry, you tell the algorithm which you will be using. So here I'm using HS256, and you pass in the claims over there, and then you sign in it with a secret key. This secret key, as you can see, I'm picking it up from the basically I'm picking it up from the environment variable over here. So generally it is stored in the environment variable or a JSON file over here. So you have your secret key, something like that. So yeah, so it should be a 256-bit secret key, but I had just given it something like this right now. So once you set the secret key, the claims, and you just return the token over there, and we'll just see where is it used. So we'll have a login API. So a login API. So in the login API, if you go, I'm just generating this token, a login response. So I'm just generating this token over there, where I'm basically fetching the user details. I'm just decoding the user request body which user will be giving. Let's say he's giving name, employee ID, or the password or something like that. I'm just decoding it and setting it in the and generating the token with that particular user. So now if I get this token, I'll be having the user details over there, and then I send it in the login response, and the client will pick this particular token, and it will be sending the token every time in the API as the header. Now let us go through how we are actually validating this token. So if you go in the auth package itself, I have an authenticate token. So this is sort of I'm using it in a middleware. So if I'll show you, so I've created one middleware. So all the APIs, which are like the edit profile API, or the not the log, or the create employee API, or the get users employee API. So in all the APIs, I have put a middleware where it is checking whether my token which the client is sending is valid for that particular user or not. So if someone is not having the token, or if let's say the if let's say if someone is trying to tamper with the token, if let's say he's trying to tamper with some other data, like some other user, so he won't it will automatically invalidate the token, and you won't be it will be saying you unauthorized response. So let us go through that middleware once. So in the middleware, I'm just calling the authenticate token, and I'm just returning a message which will have So in authenticate token, we have a function like the token.valid. It does everything for you. You don't have to do much about it. So if the token is not valid, so I'll just check what kind of error message it could have been, because a token can be invalid in many sense. Like the body can be different, like there can be only one part, there is no signature, something like that. So in that respect, particular message should have been sent. If the token is expired, then there will be a different message. So here, based on the token, I'm just validating what kind of error it is, and I'm sending the message whether it is invalidated or whether it is expired or whether it is just unauthorized or something. So these are the messages. And then finally what I'm doing, I'm just fetching the user from the claims, and then I'm setting, okay, I'm not setting it in the context. So what generally you should do, I must be setting it over here. So what generally people do, they, whatever details they're getting it in the login API, they are creating a token and then they set it in the context so that they don't have to, they have the user ID and the username and email ID, and they can use it from the context itself. So if you can see I showed you the login API. So I can give you a small demo like, no, what happened? So it's already in use. And so right now our server is running. I'll just give you a quick demo for 9004. Add one sample. Anyways, I'll create one. It's a post request. First you have to register. So the request body, you have to get the employee ID. The password, I think. I think. Yes, I'm sure now. Acha, is integer type. Okay. So your user is created. Just if I hit a login API, just the username and password. I mean the email and the password. So here you're getting a JWT token which the client will be using. So I'll just show you what it is having actually. I was storing the password also, that is my bad. So like you have your user details over here. So this you like generally store it in your context, and then you can use these data. So I was sending employee ID. So whatever I was registering, so password generally should not save it in the token. So this token is in turn sent to the client, and the client will be sending this token. So let's say there is one token for Ayush. Let's say there was one token for, let's say, like Sudeep. So if someone is trying to generate Sudeep's token on their own, so if they try to put something like this over here, they know the name and all, then this token and the token which is there originally for Sudeep, it won't be valid. Let's say we keep this token to some place, and let's say we register for Sudeep again. We'll keep the name same. We, the employer also have to change. They should be Sudeep. This is the same. So Sudeep user is created right now. If I try to log in with this, login. This token is generated for Sudeep. So this and that token. So anyone who wants to try, it won't be similar. As you can see, these two are different. Though I'll just duplicate this. Though the token which is generated is having the same payload, it's having the same payload. As you can see, the employee ID, number, email, password. If the user is having the, if some data, and if it tries to generate or manipulate the JWT, see the, if you can see the payload and the algorithm, everything is the same, but still the token is not the same. So this is where the JWT is very handy. It is a lot easier to implement than the session storage, and it is a little secure, more secure than that. So this was one example which I wanted to show. So I think we are done. And anyone having any doubt right now? Hello.
Yeah, man. I think I'm good.
Hello.
Does maybe somebody else has any doubts?
Or someone wants to see some other examples, they want to do some manipulation with the token or something. That's what I was going to trying to make you guys understand, that even if the payload and the header, the first two part of the signature, if these two part of the signature data, you know it, if it is the same, the token generated won't be same, because the signature is a function of header, payload, and the secret key. The secret key anyway I'm not knowing, so the token which will be getting generated will be different. So no one can tamper the token and generate any other one and access any other data. So in that way it is safe. And if someone is having my token, and if in that expiry time I'm not having refresh token, then anyway I'm dead. And It is also available in multiple programming languages. So the best thing is it is very easy to implement, and one more pros is that you don't have to query in the DB for the like there it's there in the session ID thing. So if let's say you have millions of users and all, so your storage space is also reduced. Some of the cons are like you can't explicitly expire this JWT, and yeah, one more cons will be that since the expiration time will be valid, so there will be one case when let's say a user is deleted and its token is still there. Like let's say that Sudeep, let's say Sudeep had signed up that thing, and his token is valid for 24 hours. And let's say after 10 hours, I deleted Sudeep's account. I cleared I deleted his account and all, but the token is still valid, right? So people can manipulate with his data even if he is deleted. So he can make requests with the help of anyone can make requests with the help of that particular token. So that is also one downside of using token. So that's why it is generally suggested you should keep 5 minutes or 10 minutes of expiration time. That is one of the biggest downside of this token. And you cannot, since you cannot explicitly expire it, so only thing for expiring it that you should store it in your cache, server side cache, so that if the client is hitting a logout or something, the client is clearing it from the local storage, and then you also clear it from your cache. That way the token gets completely destroyed. So but you can't explicitly, okay, like if the 15 minutes is there, and it's 5 minutes right now, so you can't just expire the token right now. You like change it.